Hey there, future educators. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with you today as your instructional coach. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a really exciting standard, Competency 002D. And this one is all about music styles and heritages. Now look, I know that when you're prepping for your certification exams, it can sometimes feel like you're just, memorizing this endless list of standards and descriptors. But my goal today is to connect the theory behind this music competency directly to your future classroom. We want to take these words off the page and show you exactly how they translate into vibrant, effective teaching that honestly changes students' lives. So, let's dive right into this.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We are going to move from a really vivid classroom scenario right into decoding the concepts, seeing it all in practice, doing a little teacher reflection, and finally, securing your exam and classroom success. It's going to be a great journey.
So let's kick things off with a meaningful moment that you will absolutely experience as an educator.
I want you to just imagine stepping into your classroom on a random Tuesday morning. It is completely alive with sound. You've got students over here tapping their feet to the complex, syncopated beats of jazz, and then, in the very next moment, they're analyzing the vibrant, driving rhythms of mariachi music. They aren't just sitting there passively, right? They are actively engaged. They're experiencing music across diverse cultures, time periods, and communities. The energy in that room is literally palpable because your students are connecting with human history through sound. And let me tell you, this isn't an accident. This is the direct result of your intentional instructional design.
Now, as an instructional coach, the opening question I always have to ask you is, why should a future teacher care about this? And what does this actually look like when you're teaching your own students? It's completely normal, by the way, if you have limited classroom experience right now and you're kind of wondering how to pull this off. You might be thinking, I'm not a professional musician. How on earth do I teach this? Well, don't worry. Teaching this competency is not about being a master performer. It's really about being a facilitator of musical discovery. It's about knowing exactly how to structure a lesson so your students can literally hear the world in a whole new way.
All right, to build that incredibly vibrant classroom we just imagined, we first need to unpack the academic language behind the exam standard.
Let's start with our first key term, which really builds our foundation, genre. By definition, a genre is simply a category of music that's characterized by shared features. Think of genre as this giant umbrella. It helps us categorize the vast, and let's be honest, sometimes totally overwhelming world of music into distinct, manageable groups. Classical, rock, hip-hop, country. When you teach your students about genre, you are basically giving them the organizational folders they need in their brains to sort and classify the music they hear every single day.
Next up is style. So while genre is that broad category we just talked about, style dives much deeper. It focuses on the distinctive characteristics that give a specific type of music its unique, recognizable fingerprint. It's basically the how of the music. How are the instruments being played? What's the vocal technique like? How is that saxophone bending the notes? Or how are those keys being played to create that specific groove? For instance, within the broad genre of jazz, you have the energetic, fast-paced style of bebop, and then you have the smooth, relaxed style of cool jazz. Teaching students to listen for style, that means teaching them to notice those fascinating nuanced details that make a piece of music truly one of a kind.
And finally, we have heritage. Now, this is what anchors the music in human history. Heritage represents the traditions, customs, and cultural practices that are passed down from one generation to another. Because, music doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It comes from people. It comes from celebrations, struggles, migrations, daily life. When we bring heritage into the classroom, we're teaching our students that music is actually a living artifact of cultural identity. This is exactly where the deep emotional and historical connection takes root for your learners. It transforms a simple listening exercise into a profound lesson on human empathy.
Okay. So we've got the concepts. Now let's bridge this terminology over to real everyday classroom instruction.
The competency explicitly states that students need to experience a wide variety of musical traditions and styles. So what's really cool is seeing your actual lesson plan come to life here. As a teacher, you're going to intentionally introduce your students to this rich tapestry of sounds. We're talking about the structural complexity of classical music, the joyful brass and strings of mariachi, the improvisational brilliance of jazz, the authentic storytelling found in folk music, and the deep rhythmic traditions of music from indigenous cultures. By bringing all of these into your room, you're ensuring your curriculum acts as a window to the wider world. You're giving your students a chance to explore global communities without ever having to leave their desks. How amazing is that?
But of course, we don't just hit play on a speaker and sit back. As the teacher, your key instructional decision is to actively guide your students to compare these styles. You're going to have them listen for specific elements. You might ask them, hey, how is the instrumentation in a classical symphony different from a mariachi band?
You'll literally have them physically clap out rhythms so they can feel the difference between a jazz swing and an indigenous ceremonial drum beat. And crucially, this is so important, you'll ask them to consider the purposes of each style. Was this music meant for a grand concert hall, a lively community dance, or maybe a sacred ritual? This active comparison right here is where the real learning happens and where those critical thinking skills are built.
So the crucial takeaway in all of this, and really the main goal of the standard, is balancing two major concepts. On one side, your instruction has to help students appreciate cultural diversity. That means recognizing and respecting the unique differences in these musical heritages. But on the exact flip side, you've got to guide them to understand the commonalities. They need to recognize that no matter the culture, human beings use shared musical elements like beat, melody, and rhythm to express emotion. Yes, we are different, but we are also incredibly, deeply connected. And honestly, that is the absolute magic of teaching this standard.
All right, let's pause for a second and put on our teacher reflection hats.
I want you to really ask yourself, how could this specific strategy exploring varied musical heritages support the diverse learners sitting right there in your future classroom? Think about it. How might a student respond when they see their very own cultural heritage reflected, respected, and analyzed in your daily lesson? For a student whose family listens to mariachi, or a student from an indigenous background, hearing their music elevated in an academic setting, that provides immense validation. It builds a powerful sense of belonging. It lowers those affective filters, making them feel secure, engaged, and just infinitely more ready to learn across all of your subjects. It's a real game changer.
Okay, let's distill everything we've talked about into exactly what you need to know to conquer this competency and truly thrive as a teacher.
If you see a question on the exam about music styles and heritages, or even if you're just planning a unit for your principal to review, look for these two pillars. First, effective teaching guarantees that instruction includes diverse genres and cultures. We absolutely do not just teach one type of music, period. Second, the teacher's role is to empower students to actively identify both the similarities and the differences among these musical traditions. If an answer choice on the test or a lesson plan in your classroom does both of those things, you are right on the money.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought. Are you ready to use the power of music to build a culturally rich and connected classroom? Remember, mastering Competency 002D isn't just about checking a box and passing a multiple-choice test. It's about preparing yourself to create a profound, engaging, and totally inclusive learning experience for every single student who walks through your door. You are going to be an incredible educator, and music is going to be one of your absolute most powerful tools. Keep studying, keep visualizing that future classroom, and I will see you next time.